Hi, I'm Rachel with RRD Creates, and today we're going to talk about Grainline. Part of being a designer or tailor or sewist is understanding everything there is to know about fabrics. Knowing the difference between knits and wovens, working with the crossgrain, working with the bias, and the different types of fibers, naps, and textures are all parts of knowledge that will ensure your projects are more professional. And they'll also behave in the way that you're expecting them to. So the first thing to understand is Grainline. When purchasing fabric, you're probably used to seeing something like this. This is a bolt, which is a fabric that's folded and rolled onto a cardboard rectangle where then you can get it cut and buy it by the yard at your local fabric store. Fabric can also come like this, on a long roll. In both cases, the grain line is the length of the fabric that is rolled up on the bolt or roll. On a bolt, you have a folded side of the fabric and you have the open side of the fabric. The open side of the fabric is called the selvage edge. On a roll, the selvage edge is going to be on either side of the roll. When woven fabric is being made, it's put on a loom and the length of the fabric is made up of warp yarns, while the shuttle that goes left to right over and under the warp yarns is filled with what we call the weft yarns. Since the tension of the weft yarns can vary, when the fabric is later stretched to correct itself, these selvage or throwaway edges are what is used to hold and stretch the fabric back into shape. You'll notice the selvage edge has a tighter weave and 2 rows of holes due to this process of looming and stretching. And since you want your projects to have a consistent weave and a consistent result, the selvage edge is never to be used in the making of a professional looking garment, in the interior or in the exterior. If you're into zero waste sewing, which is sewing without any wasted scraps of fabric or notions, then the selvage edges can be collected and used for making original artsy applique or even used as a replacement for polyfill or other stuffing. Just collect all of your scraps and have fun with repurposing these things as you work. So why is grain line important? The grain line is what usually goes long ways in the garment. Shoulder to waistline, waistline to floor. The warp grain line has almost no stretch, and it's considered the strongest direction. For example, when someone buys a pair of pants, they expect them to remain the same length as the day they bought them. Crossgrain is perpendicular to the grain line of fabric. It has a little bit of stretch in it in comparison to the grain line. So if we're properly laying out a pattern piece for a garment, crossgrain would be the direction that goes horizontally around the body. The bias of the fabric is diagonal from the grain line and has the most stretch of all the directions. This is used in things like waistbands, where we all need the most ease as we go through the day. Bias cut garments are usually seen as more expensive or higher quality than a typical grain line garment because it takes a bit more skill to work with. If you make a garment out of something that stretches as you work, it's pretty impressive when you come up with a great result. A completely bias cut garment is also less cost effective and can create more fabric waste. Mass-produced fashion is made by avoiding using bias cut garments altogether, to cut costs and to limit the waste. If you're interested in bias cut garments, there's a lot of great info out there. If you want to see a master of bias cut draping and design, check out the work of Madeleine Vianney. She's a famous designer who's known for cutting on the bias. If you're just joining us, we are continuing our work with our sample book. This is a whole series for completely beginner sewists who want to create things that they're really going to wear, really going to use, and really going to decorate with in their home. So now that we've learned about the grain lines, let's go ahead and create a swatch for our sample book. If you're following along with the sample book course, go ahead and cut out a 6" by 6" square, including the selvage edge, just this once, and properly label the grain line, the selvage, the crossgrain, and the bias. Staple this to your printed cardstock and add it to your binder. If you'd like to join the sample book series, all freebies are available at the link in my description. Thanks for watching, and like and follow for more design tips and small business advice.